So.
What about? Ryan, to the front of the room, please. Ryan, to the front of the room.
Oh, I think the kitchen door closed.
Yeah, I just told my husband the meeting's gonna be.
Are we recording, Maria, yet? Okay. Mhm. Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the regular meeting of the Troy City Council, July 11th, which was to have started at 7. It's now 9:40 or so. Thank you all for staying with us. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
United States of America. To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Keel,
Present.
Councilmember Brosnan,
Here.
Councilmember Spain McLaren, President, Councilmember Vera,
Present.
Councilmember Soriento, here, Councilmember Casey, Council President Steele,
Present.
all are present.
We don't have any minutes to approve. Now moving on, this is the public forum for any item on the agenda. We don't have I guess I could run through the list really quickly, or we'll just do it. If you wish to speak, just raise your hand and come forward. Ready?
Oh,
Air down.
Still?
No, you can touch it. Just try and be as loud.
I will do that. All right. Thank you, President, or Madam President. I guess I was going to ask that everybody start with a deep breath after that whole meeting, but we did that for a few minutes just now. I'm up here first questioning myself with really a function, because after what we went through, it makes me wonder if there is any open-mindedness in the commission, or sorry, in the council, on the voices that they hear, or if everybody comes into these decisions with predetermined votes, and they know where they're going and they don't listen. I noticed a number of the council members seemingly not paying attention. Mr. Casey, thank you for pointing out that you didn't listen to what I was saying, where I went through the exact fact that the city had previously replaced the commission 2 times. And I guess I'll try to do this. This isn't going to be as orderly as the speech I offered previously. Corporate counsel wanted you to listen to some examples that I wanted to specifically reply to. One of them being let's start with Taylor 2. First of all, Taylor 2 has appeared before the Planning Commission for all of 2 meetings. The most visible property next to a gateway to Troy, immediately adjacent to the Hudson, has been before our commission for 2 meetings. At the first meeting, that applicant on the record said, we are still very early on in design. So between the span of 2 months, we were to have passed that project. Beyond that, let's talk about the HUD aspect of it and the financial consideration that we're costing this applicant, we're costing the city affordable housing. I again went through that, so perhaps you missed it in my speech. I can directly quote the applicant saying there are no financial ties and that a fall approval timeline would work for that. How does that support the notion that our commission does not care about these topics? I don't. It seems like you're just decided on a position. Okay. What else? So let's talk about this notion of what our role is. And I really hoped to spare everybody the dryness of the legwork that we do, but I'm going to actually give you some excerpts from state law, the Code of Rules and Regulations, that expand on the subjective role of our commission. So, 617.7, section 1, subpart, 617.14, G, subpart 5, the impairment of the character or quality of important historical, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources of an existing community or neighborhood character. Going on, whether we have to consider it as a commission for the purpose of determining whether an action may cause one of the consequences listed in paragraph 1 of this subdivision. The lead agency must consider reasonably related long-term, short-term, direct, indirect, and cumulative impacts. So I'll give an example because I think there's a misunderstanding in the process of design. Design is an iterative process. So the planning commission role is not sitting with an architect or a structural engineer or a civil designer while they're at their desk working on the projects that they bring to us. So we give them direction, we give them, we point them in a way, and we say, here's what I'm envisioning. And some of the commissioners don't have the actual specific background as architects or civil engineers, structural engineers, planners. Some of them don't have that. So they give more general direction. And if the applicant comes back and it doesn't meet the intent of what their direction was, there's going to be an iterative process, which you are now interpreting as first it's A, B, C, D, the next time you come back it's E, E, F. Well, that's how design works. I mean, that's what the process looks like. We have to balance these things. So I'll give you, and then, okay, sorry, like I said, it's not going to be as streamlined. On process, I think there's a debate here of what process and sequence mean. Is the assertion of the issue basically when the comments are offered, whether we are in the seeker point of review or in the site plan point of review? Because if you have been through the process, you would know that we often go all the way through the review of a project, render a seeker decision, and are able then to make a quick site plan approval. But sometimes we render a decision on seeker first and then have additional comments. So we can identify a potential adverse impact. Is there a visual nuisance here? Is there an unsightliness of your project? But how you're going to mitigate that issue may end up getting solved through a dialogue that's back and forth. Are you going to screen it with trees? Are you going to put a fence up there? And the commission, which you are interpreting as subjectively, personally influencing the applicants, simply ask, have you considered this? I think this might be a better fit. Is that within the realm of possibility? I'll talk about specifically the reference to balconies. Balconies on Taylor 2 are my comment, so I can directly attest to this, was never put to that applicant as a specific requirement, do this or else. It was, verbatim, if you go watch the video, was, have you considered this? So there's a difference here between requirements versus act. There was another comment about consistency. I totally agree with that. However, I just want to clarify and recognize there is a consistency difference between, or there is going to be a difference and an inconsistency between reviewing a project of, say, putting a shed somewhere versus putting 400 or 500 plus unit apartment buildings. So those different applicants are not going to receive the same level of overall, steps or things that are being considered about their project. Another example could be you have to create parking lot entrances and curb cuts, but there may be multiple options for where those curb cuts go. That is not a check the box sort of thing. So one version may enable a bus stop to function better. Another may fit into a bike path better. There are subjective gray area evaluations that we make all the time. And so the comment really seems to be, or the concern seems to be, well, once you've made a determination on seeker, it should only be a checkbox approval on site plan. That's not the case. It depends on what the project is. It depends on what the concerns identified during the seeker process. What else? 1818 Fifth Ave, the subdivision over on Fifth, right next to Naughters. That project is what prompted me to write a defense because it was the sole positive declaration that I could find in our 37 months of acting as a planning commission. It's important that you recognize the seeker handbook provides for case law examples that help planning bodies assess whether they're in properly. They establish a low threshold for a POSDEC or for an EIS. There's a case law from Inland Rail Farm versus some other thing you're not going to care, it doesn't matter. The court recognized the low threshold for an EIS resulting from the regulatory language requiring an EIS where there, quote, may be a potential significant impact. I'd be happy to submit this for record, this entire listing where I highlighted sections of the seeker handbook, which outline all the subjective qualities. There's precedent setting. That was another key aspect of that item, that agenda item, the subdivision item. We're talking about one of the properties in Troy that is the most emblematic or the epitome of a historic property, where the ask was essentially to split the building, the house, from the carriage house. So the ask was to subdivide that. That could set a precedent, and seeker well provides for it, and I have it fully documented. Go to court over this. That we have to consider precedent setting actions as part of our duties. There is a nuance here. And Councilman Vera, I know that you were simply asking straightforward questions about part 2, but that's a case in point example of something that our commission has to deal with all the time. Those kind of actions are every day for us. And it's clear that foundational, detailed, it's nitty gritty, dry stuff isn't cured, but yet you want to pass judgment on how we perform our role. I'll try not to take too much more time. I guess besides that, I did want to clarify for some of the members of the public, the process by which you become a planning commissioner currently is that, well, historically, the commissioner of planning has nominated people. I think anyone can nominate a person, and the mayor currently appoints the commissioners. There was one over that, there's different terms that you get appointed for. But for awareness, on the note or concept of partisanship, I never once met the previous mayor, never had a conversation with the previous mayor about it. So the notion that, we are appointed and therefore we have some allegiance, that's really not it either. But there is something to be said when you first get appointed that, you don't know everything that's going on, you don't want to rock the boat too much, that there is a reality to that, but it's not as black and white as, pure political. In general, I just wanted to also thank everyone who came out here to support the Planning Commission. I am moved and amazed. I never knew there was so much interest and engaged citizenry on this matter. Please start coming more to the Planning Commission meetings. Your feedback is invaluable. We listen. It should factor in, and I just urge you to remember, you guys, I know you said there's people outside of this room that you're considering, but everyone here too, and just try and do your best to balance. I sit in your shoes, so to an extent. Thank you.
Thank you, Reddy. Would you just restate your name?
Yep.
Thank you.
Well, again, my name is Mickey Dobbin. I'm at 18 Street. I wanted to jump up here because I'm sure some other of the members of the Planning Commission will come up, say a lot of similar things that the last speaker said. I want to come up and say I was at that meeting, not as a member of the Planning Commission, not as a lawyer, not as an architect, but as a member of the public. And what was characterized by council about that meeting was, as a member of the public, grossly wrong. And what he said was right. At no point did that commission ever stipulate balconies. It was a recommendation knowing that this was going to be a report that was passed to look into it. And the thing is, I think council knows that. This is getting ridiculous. Listen to your planning commission. Listen to the architects when we are dealing with architectural things. And as you said, we're here, including people who said business owners in Proctor who said they had a great time, they had an easy time dealing with the commission. The supposed other people who have not, where are they? They're not here, we are. What does that tell you? That's all I have to say.
Thank you. It's Stephen, I think Stephen was next.
Good evening, everybody. Try to keep my comments short.
Again, please state your
sorry.
name.
Stan Nichols, 92 Ida, and on the commissioner as well. So I would just like to do a quick couple of points. Number one, to kind of get into what was just said, we've been told about various complaints and various things, and I will just point out that it's fine that people feel like it's a sensitive topic, but if we're talking empirically, we presented a ton of evidence, and there has been not one substantiated actual complaint, not a single one. We've been told about them, but okay. So I'm just going to leave that for you. I'll also point out specifically to Councilman Casey, I'm not saying that people are lying to you, but I am saying that people can be wrong. They can misunderstand. They can not have the facts correct. And a number of the comments that were passed along to you are just that. They're just incorrect. So someone may have an understanding, but their understanding can be wrong. So it's not about lying. It's far from. So that's part of what we should do. We're here to educate, and on that topic, chapter 285 it's a pretty big chapter, and obviously, Councilman McLaren understands it very well. It's painfully obvious to me that our corporate counsel has not reviewed this. It's just clear as day. I don't say that lightly. I just say it in response to some pretty pointed things that were said about our conduct. So I'll just offer that it is painfully obvious that she is not familiar with it. Many of the examples that were cited and repeated by the council are based on those misunderstandings, or I don't know, didn't read it. I don't know. I mean, obviously I can't crawl in someone's head, but a lot of those things cited, I mean, we can sit here afterwards and I can show you chapter and verse about, yes, picking out shrubs. Yeah, it's right there. Picking out colors. And a lot of those do have some amount of like herbs that are in legislative herbs that are like referenced in other sections. But some of them, like I mentioned in my comments before, determining what is objectionable about there may be features in a plan that are objectionable. There's no other definition offered. It is literally given to to the commission to understand and interpret what that means. So again, I don't think anyone here is lying. I think there's a misunderstanding, and I think that there's just a clear misunderstanding about what is actually authorized, what we're authorized to do. And I think I'll just leave it at that. And I know that there may the one final point I remembered. Just because there's a precedent for something doesn't actually make it an appropriate action to take now. Just because corruption was not involved in something prior doesn't mean that corruption isn't involved now. I don't know. That's the point, is we're operating on the information that we are put in front of us. That's our job. That's what we do. We take that extremely serious. And I just want to impress that upon the council that we really do take that seriously. And it is that is our central focus. There's not a single person on this commission that I don't think is acting in the public interest. Not a single one.
Stephen. Bill?
I applaud your endurance to start with. This is a long meeting and it's been hard. You all for continuing to listen. I'm not going to repeat what I said, and I'm not going to read this whole book to you. None of that's going to happen. I'm going to read sections of it. But I want to start by saying I still welcome the idea of the work of the planning commission or the new planning board, if that's what you decide you want to do, subjected to scrutiny and consideration given to making it. That's good for all of us. Who wouldn't want that? I think that in your consideration, we're going to have a public hearing. We're going to have an opportunity to submit some things to you in writing, I hope. So it will be helpful to highlight some of the sections of law that give the planning commission the sort of authority that you really want us to have. Notwithstanding what you're hearing here, it's not willy-nilly. There are standards set forth in laws that you have adopted. There are laws that some of which you just heard are statewide laws that provide broad parameters for what we're supposed to consider. It's not, and Lord help me, I hope you don't do this. It's not a check the box job. That's not what we do. We're not saying, paper's here, it's good. Paper here, it's good. It's the project's here. Is it good? Is it good for us? Is it good for the city? Does it meet the is it compatible with what's here? Here's the purpose of site plan review in your statute that you adopt after spending a lot of time and effort on it. The purpose of site plan review is to afford the city, where your representatives in this, an opportunity to review a proposed improvement to ensure compatibility regard to its physical and functional integration on the site of the development and in the surrounding neighborhood. It's pretty broad stuff. It's written broadly because you want us to use our brains to look at things and say, is this good? Is it as good as it can be? Can't we do better? Do we engage developers in conversation, trying to float ideas with them to make things better? Absolutely. Do we make them conditions? Absolutely not. We want you, and I'm not an architect. I sit here in awe of the conversations that true professionals have with the developer and their arguments. But we sit here and our function is to sort of help shape things to make them better. And I understood, and I could have it wrong, but I understood from Corporation Counsel that that's not what you want. You don't want a board that's making it better. You want a board that just facilitates the review by checking the boxes. I say to you, that's not what you want. I hope you don't do that. I hope you don't go down that. I'm not fighting for my job, not fighting for this commission. I'm fighting for the future, whatever you do. A planning board that's not independent isn't a planning. A planning board that doesn't have discretion to do exactly what you told them to do and evaluate the characteristics of the property to see how it fits with the neighborhood isn't a planning board. They're not there at all. Who needs them? Just pass out the checklist and let them do the work. People have to be thoughtful. People sometimes have to be aggressive. They have to really think through the project, hoping to help make the project as good as it can be for the city. That's all we do. You don't want rubber stamp. You don't want cookie cutter board. You want a thoughtful, careful, law of people educate. I'm all for it. A lot said here. Sorry, I just shifted gears. Happy to have more education. I can tell you this, Councilman Casey. No one has ever said anything to me at all about anything that's going on in a board meeting. You're out of line, comments. My wife will tell you that I get that line a lot. You're out of line. What are you saying? Well, that's never happened to your council's never said you're not. That's a question you're not. I'd be happy to be educated. Let's make that part of the problem. Whoever's coming, whoever's going to be your board, your commission, you better educate. This is not easy lifting. I'm a lawyer. I've been doing law for my whole life. You come in here and nobody tells you thing. Nobody comes in and say, let me show you the standards you use. It's go out and learn it on your own. So you can make it better. Help the board be thoughtful, help them know the law, help them adhere to things. If you have concerns, you're the city council. Summon us, put us at a table. Say, well, you just did this. I just read this transcript. What are you doing? I think that's your job. I would not look to be in that hot seat, but I think that I would expect to be part of the job. So do that. Don't just spring a wholesale change of the board without any notice or reasons. I think, frankly, and I don't mean this, I think that the real reason is the desire to start afresh with people that are part of the administration. That's the purpose of this. That's the objective, not anything we've done wrong. Because we could address every one of those problems by having education, by having individual discipline, having review by you or by the mayor. Let's look at this for what it is. It's just not, for all those other two times that it's happened, it's a maneuver to just say, oh, we want our people. And I get it. And if that's what you do, please get people and give them the independence to do their job. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you again, for your time. David Banks, I'm, on Bell Avenue, East Side neighborhood. I wasn't gonna talk again, but, towards the end, something kind of dawned on me as we were talking about tabling and the tabling vote. Yeah, so first of all, my credential here is, as a former council member, Connolly Wilson said, right, if we put in a new board, they'll have to be trained. I train those trainers. I am at the Geography and Planning Department at UAlbany. I teach in our Masters in Regional Planning program. I teach the teachers. All right, and you want to know what gets you in Article 78, which we had vague threats of about this, is having council members and other city officials shouting that we politicize the planning commission all the time. I want to also say that that this current one has done it several times and then mischaracterized what our commissioners have done on the record in a public setting such as this, that they put that in the record that they did that. I was also at that meeting. I also think that the Corporation Council's description of that is completely inaccurate. But putting that on the record, having the Corporation Council say that happened on the record, that's the kind of thing that opens us up to these lawsuits. So in all fairness and deference to your authority here, respect, shut this down. Stop. Just stop it. I understand the idea that where we can just get more ideas here. Maybe we could start making this better. So far, just based on tonight, it's not going to get better. You're opening yourself up for exactly the thing that you say that we have to dissolve the commission. So I would please urge you on this second round here to slow this, tap the brakes on this one, because what I've been hearing tonight, I don't call them lies because I think Mr. Maple said, you can't get into someone's head, but the untruths that 4 people now have said the Corporation Council just said, right, are the kinds of things that are going to get us. I also think Councilmember Casey reiterating how many times we politicize this council is a really bad idea. It was bad the last time they did it. That when Democrats did it, I'm a registered Democrat. When Democrats, that was a bad idea. When Tunjan did it, that was also a really bad idea. It's an idea that.
Good evening again. Everybody's still here, which is Leo Parkinger, Mount Lake, lifelong in Troy. Sorry. I'll try to get my thoughts straight as I speak, not as streamlined as previously. I'm also gonna record myself video-wise, just to make sure that this is in the record, because some things are important in the record. Speaking of getting people into trouble, there's some procedural issues. There's some issues in terms of process that I want to talk about, both in terms of the previous meeting to make sure it's in the record, as well as in this brief meeting. There's some issues just in terms of the integrity of decision-making and the public trust in this body, which I'm going to start with first. You're getting this process backwards. I've done this kind of work for a long time. I mentioned I have a doctorate degree. I've worked with governments, local, internationally, Europe. You don't pass something, have hearings, and then amend it. It's not process of lawmaking. You present something, you have panel discussions, you get the facts on the table because it's duty to consider the fact. You get then public input and then to pass it based on that facts that are in front of you, not the other way around. It's wording how those processes are meant to go. It's definitely eroding the trust of the public, and people being here, despite of that, is impressive, and it makes them tired. It makes me tired a lot too. Some procedural things, the agenda for the finance meeting, I think did not include the text of the ordinance until earlier today. I did not have a chance to review it. We see that reflected in the comments that the public probably to a large extent didn't have the time to review it either if it came after work. You're supposed to post agendas 24 hours prior to a meeting for that reason. This agenda for this meeting, there was discussion of reintroducing an agenda item by majority vote. I might be wrong here. I'm not a lawyer. Let's make that clear. And I'm trying to find my notes. There is a section in your code that talks about introduction of agenda items. In section 228 in the Article 5 of Rules of Order, only items approved by the committee or chairperson at least 2 weeks before regular council meeting may be placed on that agenda. There's exceptions of emergency. This doesn't strike me as an emergency. I'm just reading this. I'm not sure what this means for this agenda, your ability to act, as well as the previous one. Again, to the earlier points, with the lack of text of the ordinance, I can't talk to this in the substance. I read this stuff all the time because I had not the opportunity to read. Further, the elevator coming up, the only one works and you have to press both buttons. There were a lot of people here. They made it here. We went down and guided a bunch of people. Not sure everybody made it. More strikingly, I only am here again because people came downstairs because the doors downstairs are locked currently. If someone wanted to come speak only to this meeting, they might not have been able to. That's a problem. That's a big problem. I had more things and I want to make sure they are in the record. Again, contents of the ordinance. There were some pretty problematic comments about personal conduct and behavior that were presented as facts. I mentioned that earlier. I talked to the participation issue. I'm sure I'm missing some things, part because of the process and part of the lack of ability to prepare for the specifics of the ordinance. And yes, you have a public hearing coming. That might be nice and good, and that might be great, but you're acting on something here that I personally did not have the ability to review or time to review or make any substantive on. I don't know if I'm in favor or not of chapter 72, or if that's even the right number. I'm sorry, you know what I mean. Or if what I think I have no idea. I look at this all the time. I have no idea because I had no chance to look at this. That's a procedural problem in my mind. And you're acting on this. You may amend it later, but you're doing an act on this item tonight. There are more things, I'm sure. I'll send letters as I wrote my thoughts after what I witnessed today and after I consulted with some people. I leave it at that. I appreciate you listening to. I really do because you clearly did, and I appreciate your time spent.
Thank you, Leo.
James Rath, 398 William Street. One of the most frustrating things I think is listening to the mischaracterizations about the way that we act, the way that is documented, it's recorded. You all can go back and listen to it yourselves. I think the previous speaker makes a great point about how we should have the time to do that. I know Councilmember Rivera has served on the Planning Commission. Sounds like Councilmember Steele, I didn't know you served on the Planning Commission. I've seen Councilmember Brosnan at the Planning Commission meetings, a handful of them, but I've never seen other members there. And I would just encourage you to come and sit at a Planning Commission meeting and listen to the way that we do deliberate, because it's not based on the color of somebody's shirt. It is based on our judgment. And 7 of us all have applicable backgrounds that impact our decision making. So while yes, there are some subjective things that we discuss that are not checkbox items, like maybe RPI proposing to plant 6 white pines above a sport court. White pines, if you don't know, are known for dropping large branches in storms. Also, we want to avoid planting all of one species of tree in case, like in the case of white pines, there is a pine beetle coming through and taking them out. So we wanted to diversify them so that in the case of something like that, they're not all gone at once, and that we could swap them, replant, and have succeeders or successors, to them, sort of like maybe we should have for planning commissioners. So yes, I think firstly, come out to a planning commission meeting. There's one on Wednesday. You can come listen to how we discuss things. We do also look for guidance because we're not, besides Bill, none of us are attorneys. So I sit after every meeting, essentially, especially meetings that are a little more controversial, like 1818 Fifth Ave that was brought up as an example. I tend to go up to our council afterwards and ask for feedback and say, hey, was there anything there that gave you concern? Are we extending ourselves in a way that is outside of our purview? And we get feedback all the time. In my time, my 3 years on the commission and my 3 years working as the executive secretary for the zoning board and the planning commission, I've dealt with a handful of different attorneys and have learned from each of them. I've also attended trainings every single year where presentations are given by attorneys, and we learn how to have discussions about these characteristics, whether it's about architecture or turning corner radii on the curb, or what type of street trees we're going to put in, or rooftop activation, or any of these things that people sitting in your chair might think are add-ons or things that we shouldn't be asking for. And we've learned from those experts that you don't ask, you don't get. And the characteristics that we have rejected projects is completely false. I mean, you have our voting record, you have the number of projects that have been approved versus the projects that have been denied. So to listen to somebody and say, oh, you said that the trash shouldn't smell for the neighbors in Lansingburg and that the water shouldn't be pooling up, is you were basically rejecting that project. No, it is not us basically rejecting that project. It is us approving that project. And we did it in a way so that the applicant didn't have to come back for another meeting, so that they could just submit those materials to the planning staff, they could get their building permit, and they could move on. That landlord who wants to put 4 units in Lansingburg, the example that the Corporation Council just gave to you, which is completely false. So I think you guys, if you're going to go off of these false statements, you're going to make the wrong decision. And I think you should come out to a planning commission meeting, listen to the way that we deliberate, listen to the way that we divide up who takes the lead on different things. As a transportation planner, that is what I focus on. As somebody who works with trees every week, that's what I focus on. I'm not making textual comments. Listening to Sarah Wengert, who's a professional architect, we're very well-respected professional architect in the field when it comes to architecture, or Suzanne Spellin when it comes to historic matters. So we're not overstepping our bounds. We're having discussions with developers. We're saying, hey, have you considered a balcony here? If they say, we can't do a balcony because we can't afford to do the balcony. Our response 100% of the time so far has been, great, thank you for talking to us about that. Not, oh, well, you need to do the balcony or your project can be denied. Again, just categorical. Please come out to a planning commission meeting, make an educated decision, and hopefully we can talk more about this.
Thank you, James.
Is that gonna change
Who
the?
who knows?
Do it at your own risk.
So good? Okay. Thank you for staying and listening with open ears and open hearts. I know it's a really late night and I appreciate it. Anonymous developers are complaining. Representative Keel says that developers shouldn't have to sue. What about the residents? What about the citizens? What is the recourse for the 51,000 people that live in this city as opposed to what, the 20 developers whose money seems to carry a lot more weight? Today, since there is so much talk right now about developers complaining to the mayor, today I filed a FOIL asking for the correspondence between the mayor's office from starting in January 1st, when she took office, and any developer complaining about the planning commission. These are such serious accusations that is, we're really seeing on display here the incredible integrity that each one of these commissioners possess. And this is affecting all of them. And we should not be doing this based on hearsay. Abolishing the planning commission, very serious, even though it seems that every administration has done this flip-flopping for, what, 20 years? What have we learned in this time? Why do we keep making the same decisions? It's like we need a therapist or something. Developers don't want to come forward for fear of retaliation. What about every single person in this room? What about all of us? We have professors, we have lawyers, we have architects, we have professionals in their fields who are risking their name, who are risking their word by coming up to advocate for what they feel is right. Whereas a developer who has money on the line doesn't want to show their face or say their name because they maybe won't get another project in the future, then that's the sign of a defective board who won't pass something because of bias. But I don't think that's actually what's in question right here. The difference between us and developers are a couple millions of dollars. And we're talking about unfavorable timelines. If a developer brings, let's say hypothetically, a horrible project, a lazily designed project out of character with the neighborhood, and every single neighbor in that neighborhood is against it. Maybe they sign petitions. Maybe they start showing up to every single meeting to speak against it. And they bring experts, they bring lawyers, they bring architects, they bring engineers. But a developer has a lot of money to push it through. What recourse do the citizens have? Who represents them? Where are the checks and balances? Checks and balances are the body of the planning commission. The money to do a project does not guarantee you the privilege of executing it in this town. We do not need unfettered growth. We need smart growth. What the planning commission has been issuing through wisely. I can't think of, we have not made another atrium, for example. Growth for the sake of growth is the definition of cancer. And since we were talking about Article 78, this city is not afraid of lawsuits. We have a lot of them, and I have one of them. I have issued an Article 78 against the city for 2 decisions about probably the project we're all talking about in code right now. And the amount of lawyers that we brought to meetings for 3 years showed the city that we were serious about litigation. But we didn't threat, because threats are for the weak. Friends of the McKeegan was serious, and we continue to be serious about this. The city's still standing. This Article 78 and no amount of litigation, especially considering what we just paid out for the killing of a Trojan man, has taken the city down. The motivation tonight clearly isn't about a developer's threat of an Article 78. The motivation is about a power grab for this new administration. And that is such an affront to the work that this planning commission has done and wants to keep doing for this city. Thank you.
Thank you, Jess. Does anyone else wish to speak? Really ours.
Hello, Raymond, Highland Avenue. I just want to keep it brief. I just keep hearing a lot of comments from the Corporation Council about the belief that that minor changes to planning is something that is considered rejection. I just want to remind you that in the New York State Senate, for example, in committee meetings, they do something called yes, no, and yes with reservation. In my belief is that the Planning Commission is basically doing a yes with reservation in these situations where they approve a project, but they have minor things they want changing. Sometimes yes, it's about water pooling in a certain area, which can have detrimental effects. I here by trade, I'm actually just started as starting the process of becoming an engineer, professional license. And water drainage is actually one of the most important things when it comes to maintenance of a roadway. Cooling water actually causes, it seeps into the asphalt. It, freezes and thaws when the winter comes, and it forms cracks and potholes. And, something that the Planning Commission knows, as they're a bunch of professional engineers and planners and architects. So I just wanted to say that, these things aren't being said because there's no merit. There is merit to them because, these are things that make a project better. These are stuff that the architects who are presenting to the Planning Commission know. These things improve projects, they make them better, and they make them last longer. So, these sorts of things regularly happen, and I just wanted to bring up the, a political, situation where something, yes, that happens, but with reservation. And I think this is a good analogy. Thank you.
Thank you, Raymond.
Hi, my name is Jude Gazelshin. I live in Troy. I'd like to speak again about the ordinance regarding the settlement for the family of Spi Alakawi. Councilmember Vera asked earlier if any policy changes followed the police killing of Sbi Alakawi, and was answered that TPD adopted a changed body cam and dash cam policy to facilitate better reconstruction of incidents of police violence after their occurrence. I'd like to rebut that reconstruction is not prevention. The footage that was released of Sbi Alakawi's murder did not and cannot bring him back. This policy does nothing to prevent further police violence in Troy. The National Institute of Justice notes that there is no conclusive evidence that body cams reduce police violence in any meaningful way. I'm sure everyone here has seen plenty of news stories nationwide where mandatory body cameras and dash cams were all mysteriously broken or covered at the time, and plenty more where we have detailed video of police violence and still no consequences were brought against any of the officers involved. Body cams are important, but they are not prevention. The city must take strong action to prevent, not investigate after the fact, but prevent police negligence and police violence. If you've driven in the city for any amount of time, you'll have seen plenty of reckless driving by the police, including with sirens off and during traffic heavy times. I'm confident saying this because I have seen it time and time again as a regular commuter. I witnessed personally police brutalize someone they were arresting who was already restrained. The police in the city do not care for our lives. If they did, Justin Byrne would not have stayed on the force for 71 weeks after killing someone. If the city does not make significant policy changes, more people will be injured and more people will die. Someone already has this week. Thank you.
Thank you, Jude.
Hello, I'm Annie Borthwick, and I've lived in Troy since 1969. I just turned 79 on Monday. I found it astonishing and terrible to read in the newspaper that a policeman was let go because he lost his license, so he couldn't drive, and therefore he was no longer a member of our police force. When that was not the reason why he should be let go. He should be let go because he went 90 miles an hour through the intersection of Hoosick Street and 15th and killed somebody. The fact that that was reported and it was stated by a public official is such an insult to the family, the insult to pedestrians, and to the people of Troy. To say that he was let go because he no longer could drive and therefore he was no longer qualified to be a policeman, that's not the reason. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie.
Hi, guys. Greg Campbell Cohen. I live at 342 Congress Street. First idea, just spaghetti at the wall. What if, going forward, when there's a lot of public comments, we ordered everybody by height? And so incrementally through
The shortest go first.
So two quick ones. One is, I just want to reiterate excellent observation that Majority Leader Casey made, which is that nobody came here to speak in support of any of this legislation on the creation of the planning board or repealing the legislation that created the planning commission. That is stunning. I can't remember when that happened. I think it was about 6 hours ago. There were a lot of people here talking about how much they don't like this. The second thing, though, that I want to be like, I would encourage the council to inquire about what specifically is the urgency right now for doing this, half of this all in one month. But what is the urgency that the administration is seizing upon that like cannot, as I understand it, or as it was said earlier, maybe I'm misremembering, but as I understand it, lawyers have called Corporation Counsel to talk about filing Article 78. I'm telling you now, I would like to talk to you right now about doing the same. Now you have it on either side. So if you do the planning board thing, I'm talking to you. We will do the same. We'll fundraise for it. Is that a credible threat? Is that interesting? Is that something you want to act upon? No, it's asinine. It's asinine. I mean, and what was the content of the discussion that happened between the Corporation Counsel and the attorneys representing those developers that has you so confident that if you were to repeal the planning commission and create the planning board, that would resolve those issues? Was the content of that discussion, hey, if you dissolve the planning commission, we will not file Article 78 legislation against litigation against the city? I mean, well, what is that like sort of confidence in causality that could prompt you to just jam something so monumental and offensive through? And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Greg. Anyone else wish to speak?
Hi, my name is Mark DeVette. I reside at 301 3rd Street, Troy. And I want to ask, or just state, and I want, like these if statements to be just things that you should think about. If there's an issue with the planning board, is replacing it the first action? If there's an issue with the developer and the planning board, is replacing the board the first action? Maybe there's an issue with a particular board member. Maybe that is how you resolve that. Maybe you bring them here and ask them questions about it. Replacing a board because one developer or two developers has a little struggles with them feels like using a sledgehammer to fix a problem when a scalpel is necessary. And I'm saying to you, do not be the sledgehammer and don't let the administration let you be a sledgehammer. If there's an issue with the planning board, and I haven't seen that, but if there's an issue with it, approach this like a scalpel. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you, Mark. Leo, you already spoke. Uh, Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate your input. Thank you. Yeah. Sure.
Thank you. I'll keep it brief. I did not know about the settlement for the victim's family, for Mr. Alakawi. And I just heard the other comments made, and I was really, and the comments by the Corporation Council was just moved to bring up a point in that the way that we classify it does matter. The way that we speak about it does matter, especially, I'm sure, for the victim's family. And if the city council and the city of Troy administration is not comfortable classifying it as a murder, I understand. But to hear it being discussed as an accident is pretty grotesque and disturbing. You don't accidentally drive through an intersection at 90 miles an hour when the light is red and hit somebody, and it's not an accidental thing that kills them. I think none of us here, I hope, drive like that. And we don't drive that for good reason. So let's at least do the victim's family, have respect for the victim's family to call it at least a crash or an incident or something other than an accident. You might accidentally drop your keys on the way into your house, but if you accidentally put your keys on a sloped surface 100 times and you drop your keys 100 times, maybe you're doing something wrong. So let's learn from this. Let's actually put some real change into the police department rather than just a meaningless training. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Okay, I think we'll move on to our agenda. Ordinance 35.
Ordinance 35, ordinance transferring funds within the 2024 general fund. Councilmember Casey at the request of the administration.
We have a motion.
Motion.
Member
Council President, I am going to actually, make a motion to add local law 3. We were supposed to put that onto the meeting. It was the regular meeting.
I believe that we had an opinion from Rick that was not necessary.
It was good enough. Correct. The Corporation Council did say it's not necessary, but it's fine to still do it. It's fine. We can add it? Sure. I am going to make a motion to add it on to the regular meeting. For introduction only, yep.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
I don't see the need. 4-3. We had an opinion from the lawyer. All right, back to ordinance 35. We had a motion by Councilmember Brosnan. Second. Councilmember McLaren. Discussion on the resolution of the ordinance. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
7 ayes, 3 noes, ordinance 35 passed.
Ordinance 36.
We're passing on that.
Council President, you can withdraw that one if you recall, pending the public hearing, and put it back on at the end of the month.
Been a long night. Thank you. Ordinance 37.
Ordinance 37, ordinance authorizing mayor to enter into an amended agreement with First Columbia 433 River Street LLC doing business as Headley Park Place for the lease of a portion of 433 River Street for use as City Hall. Councilmember Casey at the request of the administration.
We have a motion.
Motion.
Councilmember Brosnan, second.
Second.
Wow. I'm going to give it to Councilman Keel. Discussion on the resolution or the ordinance. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
7 ayes, 0 nos. Ordinance 37 passes.
Ordinance 38.
Ordinance 38, ordinance authorizing settlement of claim to wit Zena Alkawi individually and as administrator of the estate of Sabi Alkawi versus the City of Troy, the City of Troy Police Department, and Officer Justin Burns, the Supreme Court, Rensselaer County, State of New York, index number EF 2023-275049. Councilmember Casey at the request of the administration.
We have a motion.
Motion.
Councilmember McLaren, second.
Second.
Councilmember Keel. Discussion on the ordinance. Member Casey?
I just wanted to, I already spoke on this, but I did want to respond to some of the public comments. You know, people spoke about determination, and I just want to remind people that whether it be a public safety officer, a city employee, a state employee, a teacher, whether we like it or not, these are actually union protections. We don't always like what it is.
Please refrain from comment. Thank you.
Over the years, we have laws in the state, procedures in the state, in the union contracts. Whether we like it or not, I don't think we want to do away with union protections in the state, whether we like it or not. It doesn't sit well with me, but I certainly don't want to take and see the state start taking away union rights. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Council President.
Councilmember Vera?
I see that the mayor's available, and I was just wanted to direct the same question I had during finance, to you, if you don't mind coming up. And I was just curious if there are any policy changes that came out of this as it relates to the use of sirens and lights.
We're just having a discussion. I think the police chief is better suited to answer that question. My understanding is that the policy was already in place and it hasn't been changed. In other words, there was already a lights and siren policy. I don't know that it's new.
Okay.
That's where I'm getting hung up.
Oh, okay. So the policy is in place that the
Correct.
at least partially the events that led to this crash, this incident, was a violation of already existing policy. There were no policy
I
changes.
can't answer that question.
You can't answer that.
Would have to go into executive session. You're going down a path of wrongdoing. Okay,
I'm sorry?
we're going down a path of potential wrongdoing. We would have to go into executive session.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will say though, all cars right now do have the dash cams. They did not before that accident, or before
Understood. That's a
this
policy change that
horrific
came out of
tragedy.
this, which
Correct. So all cars have dash cams,
Okay.
okay?
Thank you.
But if you wanted to talk further, we would have to go into executive session. Okay?
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. No further questions.
Any other comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
7 ayes, 0 nos. Ordinance 38 passes.
Ordinance 39.
Ordinance 39, an ordinance adding chapter 72 planning board to the code of the city of Troy. Councilmember Casey at the request of the administration.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Councilmember Keel, second.
Second.
Councilmember Soriento. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Nay.
Four ayes, 3 nos. Ordinance 39 passes.
Resolutions, resolution 103.
Resolution 103, resolution appointing a commissioner of the of the city of Troy. Council President Steele.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Councilmember Brosnan, second.
Second.
Councilmember Keel. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
7 ayes, 0 nos. Resolution 103 passes.
Resolution 104.
Resolution 104, resolution to designate Old Sixth Avenue as Grace Marie Branch Way in honor of Miss Grace Marie Branch. Councilmember Brazen, Council President Steele, at the request of the administration.
Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Councilmember Vera with a second by Councilmember Soriento. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
7 ayes, 0 nos. Resolution 104 passes.
Resolution 105.
Resolution 105, resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract to receive downtown revitalization initiative funds from the New York State Department of State to be used for the purpose of reconfiguring the intersection at Congress Street and River Street. Councilmember Casey, Council President Steele, at the request of the administration.
Do we have a motion? Councilmember Keel, second.
Second.
Councilmember McLaren. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
7 ayes, 0 nos. Resolution 105 passes.
Resolution 106.
Resolution 106, resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract to receive downtown revitalization initiative funds from the New York State Department of State to be used for construction of the Marina North Riverwalk and for branding and wayfinding throughout the dry area. Councilmember Casey, Council President Steele, at the request of the administration.
I would just note that it should
DRI.
be DRI.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Member Keel, second.
Second.
Councilmember Soriento. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
7 ayes, 0 nos. Resolution 106 passes.
Resolution 108.
Resolution 108, resolution of the Tri-City Council approving and endorsing an application to the New York State Division of Housing and Community Renewal Office of Homes and Community Renewal for funding from the New York Main Street Grant Program. Councilmember Keel, Council President Steele, at the request of the administration.
We have a motion.
Motion.
Councilmember Brosnan, seconded by Councilmember Soriento. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
7 ayes, 0 nos. Resolution 108 passes.
Resolution 109.
Resolution 109, resolution of the Tri-City Council approving and endorsing submission of consolidated funding applications through the round, what is it, 17? 14. Regional Economic Development Council initiative to seek further funding for constructing the Marina North Riverwalk and for implementing a branding and wayfinding program throughout the downtown revitalization area. Councilmember Casey, Council President Steele, at the request of the administration.
We have a motion.
Motion.
Councilmember Soriento with second by Councilmember Brosnan. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
7 ayes, 0 nos. Resolution 109 passes. Sorry. Sorry. I don't know Roman numerals and I'm tired. I don't know what to tell you.
We're speaking for all of us. Resolution 113.
Resolution 113, resolution of the Tri-City Council approving and endorsing the application of the New York State Environmental Protection Fund Grant Program for Parks Preservation and Heritage by the Rensselaer Plateau Alliance. Councilmember Soriento, Councilmember Vera, the request of the district.
We have a motion.
Motion.
Councilmember Brosnan, second.
Second.
Councilmember McLaren. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
7 ayes, 0 nos. Resolution 113 passes.
Resolution 114.
Resolution 114, resolution of the Tri-City Council authorizing and scheduling a public hearing in connection with proposed ordinance 36 as it relates to the granting of a cable division franchise agreement held by Spectrum Northeast LLC. Councilmember Casey, at the request of the administration.
Motion.
Motion.
Councilmember Soriento with second by Councilmember Brosnan.
Okay.
Public hearing date and time is make sure that that's noted. Rick, what are those? Just make sure it's.
Those time, dates and times were in there because I checked to see what dates and times they were. They'll be on the 25th and I can't remember which comes first, but one's at 5:45 and then 5:50.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
7 ayes, 0 nos. Resolution 114 passes.
Resolution 115.
Resolution 115, resolution of the Tri-City Council scheduling a public hearing to be held concerning proposed local law number 3, repealing chapter 71 of the Tri-City Code to be replaced by adoption of a new planning board ordinance pursuant to general city law. Councilmember Casey at the request of administration.
We have a motion.
Motion.
Councilmember Soriento, second. By Councilmember Casey. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
7 ayes, 0 nos. Resolution 115 passes.
Resolution 116.
Council President didn't pass, fine.
Oh,
That was
right,
tabled.
right. Sorry.
You're fine. It's late.
Resolution 117.
Resolution 117, a resolution to designate a portion of 7th Avenue between 113th and 114th Street as Rev. Jackie Robinson Senior Way in honor of Reverend Jackie Robinson Senior. Councilmember Keel at the request of the administration.
We have a motion.
Motion.
Member Brosnan, second.
Second.
Councilmember Vera. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
7 ayes, 0 nos. Resolution 117 passes.
Anything about that stuff.
I thought we discussed it before.
No, but just want to let you know, September will be the
Oh,
time when, I don't know what day, but that would be the time.
Can
you make sure that we all get an invitation? Thank you.
yeah, and with a little notice would help too. At this point in the evening, if we're still awake, no, we have another public forum. This can be on any item, not necessarily on the agenda. Go,
Shortest to tallest.
go Annie, go Annie. She needs a microphone.
My husband was on the Troy School Board. He was appointed to fill out somebody's term. And I had just about to deliver a baby, the very first one. And then he continued to be on the school board for the next 5 years. And at that time, the school board did a tremendous amount of very controversial things like busing all the kids home for lunch, which caused a lot of concern about the difficulty of you disrespecting the need for their mothers. I want to tell you how much I understand how hard it is and how valuable it is that people are members of boards of commissions and elected officials and appointed officials. I really appreciate all that work. Also appreciate the work of their spouses and their families in surviving all that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. I was going to, okay, Mark.
Hi, City Council. So we still have not received a second report for the Q1 fiscal report. And we're getting to the point where the Q2 fiscal report is going to be due. I think that it's very prudent that we are constantly allocating money in different ways, and we do not know what the bigger picture of that is. And I do think the mayor and the administration has a fiscal responsibility to provide that information in a timely way, where we as the citizenry and you as the council have the ability to make informed decisions about the health and the financial health of Troy. And I apologize, but I do not take one elected official's word that everything is fine. The proof is in the pudding, and I would really like that report, regardless of whether or not there's a city comptroller, to be a focus of the next finance meeting, if that's not possible, be announced as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Actually, you beat me to it. I was going to ask the mayor to brief us, but I don't see her in the room. It's my understanding, oh, there she is. We're not getting a report tonight. When do you think we will be getting a report? Okay, we still have consultants on site, is that correct? Consultants are done, so the 113,000 that we spent is over with. Done. Okay,
Council President Steele, I just want to say quick, from some of this questioning, I just want to say, we don't have a controller. Okay, Seamus Donnelly, Arnella, they can't do accounting.
we have
The
some,
fire chief can't, what works, head can't, none of us can. We all want that report. We all want that report. We need a controller. Which we all know that Andy didn't. And we're not blaming Andy, but that's why we're here where we at. We all want that report, every single one of us.
And to clarify, thank you, Councilmember Casey. Pronexus not with us any longer. We are in the hunt for a comptroller. So if any of you here retired municipal, we're not going to entertain private. It's just too much of a learning curve. Saying that, you know, we know what's needed. The good news, Andy didn't do it alone. There is a very good, competent comptroller's team. And they are paying the bills, they're doing their job. Each department can run their reports for that particular department. Budget call letters going out first thing tomorrow morning. If it didn't go out tonight, Gabrielle Mahoney is our treasurer right now. Myself and Gabrielle call letter out for budget. But we will keep the council apprised. But for a report right now, we're just not in a position to do so. But I assure you, we will be hopefully soon.
so just to clarify, we do not have anyone on site at the moment, preparing us for the audit.
The auditors, we spoke to them 3 times this week. We spoke to them last week. They were on site this week. The auditors will be in to audit.
Okay. All right, any other questions? Thank you. With that, I think it's time to say goodnight.
I'm so glad.
the motion to adjourn.
Everyone's moving.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.